DraftSociety.com presents a Premier League Draft Fantasy Podcast. Welcome to the Key Pass Collective. Your exclusive source for the information, analysis, and advice you need to dominate your fantasy leagues. Come on in. We've been expecting you.
Welcome in, draft heads. What is going on, everybody?
DraftSociety.com.
There it is.
A Premier League Draft Fantasy
Hold on.
Podcast.
God damn. All right. Anyway, sorry, I'm on a new computer. I'm on my work computer. That's why. Okay. Wow. Let's start that again. What's going on, draft heads? My name is Joe Williams. Welcome to the Key Pass Collective. I'll be your host here for this particular episode. Welcome in everybody who's chatting live, who's joining us for the live stream. What's going on, Draft Alchemy? Saying hey to everybody, but I don't see anybody else quite as active in the chat just yet. But let's pick that up, people. I was going to say boys, but there could very well be some ladies and non-binary folks in our chat as well. So welcome to everybody. Key Pass Collective, of course, is your audio companion to the Draft Society website. Let's talk about the Draft Society here for just a quick second. So the Draft Society is going to be basically your one-stop shop for all of your draft needs. So we're talking the draft fantasy football game here. And we've got rankings. We've got waiver wire articles, weekly, sleepers 11, draft statistics. These are all completely free for anybody. League setup articles for you commissioners out there. Draft 101 articles, totally free. Check out the DraftSociety.com. If you are willing to part with a couple of bucks a month, we do have the Inner Circle, which has additional benefits for those willing to support an independent fantasy football website. So we've got rest of season player rankings. We've got points projections every single week. We've got sortable consensus ranks, set piece taker tracker, fixture difficulty tracker, and then, of course, the crown jewel, which is the fantasy toolkit that was created by our very own draft lad. So yeah, there's so much there. We really do think that it's worth it. We put a lot of time and effort into it. We're talking thousands of hours throughout the course of the season. And we really hope that it delivers value and delivers wins, more importantly, for you and your fantasy team. So check it out, DraftSociety.com. If you'd be willing to support us, we would absolutely appreciate it. Okay, pitch aside, let's talk about today on the KPC. So we are going to hit up some fantasy blind spots. I've been thinking about this a little bit. What are some things that maybe our perception as fantasy managers is actually not quite lined up with the reality of the situation? There's been a few of those things that have hit me recently, and I want to talk through them with some of the gentlemen on today's show. So fantasy blind spots. And then, of course, we'll get to our Game Week 9 waivers and stashes, and then questions throughout, of course, because it's on international break. So we got some time to think about some things. If you are trying to stash players, if you're trying to think of trade targets, players you want to trade in or out, would you trade this player for this player? Hit us up in the chat. We'll flash it on screen and see if we can get some opinions on those things. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in some of the gang. We're hoping that even potentially more or another individual might join us here later, but we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. But for now, we do have Totti, we have Ryan, and we have Sanji from Banta Boys. If you don't listen to Sanji's podcast, Banta Boys, do it. Not immediately because you finished this one, but then go ahead and cue that up for your next one. Did you guys record yesterday, Sanji?
No, we're lazy.
Okay. All right.
Enjoying the break.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I just didn't know if I missed it in my feed.
No. We're supposed to have some inside tracks content coming out, hopefully in the next couple of days. Hint, hint, Ryan.
Love it.
Hopefully by the weekend we'll have a few of the club reps giving their takes. Next week we'll be recording, so keep your eyes and ears open.
Beauty. Yeah, believe in chat. Ryan is saying Ryan is so HD. You're looking just fantastic, my friend.
Yeah, that's my wife's doing, obviously.
It's awesome. Looks beautiful. You have like a decorative bush in the background. It's gorgeous.
Oh God, did she put that up there? Yeah, she's too much.
And the video is so crisp.
It's very much, yeah.
I keep telling her people tune in for my takes, not my dashing good looks. But
now it's both. Now it is both.
I don't blame him now.
I see my video is decent, but I need that warm lighting that you have. I need to figure out how to have that to make me not look like I'm dead.
I can almost count the hairs on his head.
Yeah.
It's a thick head of hair.
It is. It's marvelous.
What?
Maybe Ryan can lend you his 7-member crew for the next time.
They have a decent hourly rate.
They're paid in Nando's.
Yes, that's true. They are paid in peri.
You'd take it.
Spice.
I would take it.
100% work off of halloumi.
Turns out my wife is here in the comments.
Keep her.
Didn't even know that she knew that this was streaming live. But she thinks my video camera is looking okay as well. So, yeah. Thanks, Kay. All right, Totti, how are you looking? More importantly,
I'm looking great, sporting the Spain top. Yeah, looking forward to a nice, chill international break pod.
Yeah, I feel you. Speaking of international break, let's just really quickly touch on we've been bantering a little bit back and forth on Twitter and then also in our group chat about the waiver wire and about when the waiver wire will be taking effect and when waiver wire runs will be going. We were going to chat more about that today, but we decided we got enough to talk about, and I think that's a good subject for a future maybe Draft 101 podcast or even some articles about which type of waiver system is the best and which ones we would recommend to, new leagues versus very established leagues, etc. So we're going to save that. But just a quick reminder, it is international break. As much as we do love to obsess about this, take a little break. Totti reminded me that yesterday was, of course, World Mental Health Day. So if you're not familiar, last year, one of our good friends, Luke Wilkins, the Inner Geek, did basically a doctoral study, was it, on mental health and fantasy football. And some of the results were a little bit alarming. So just kind of a reminder, right? If you find yourself taking this a little bit too seriously sometimes and letting a loss affect your entire weekend or, God forbid, entire week, take a breather this IB. Just relax. Kind of just breathe it all out. Yeah. But what do you guys think?
Sanji has disappeared.
Oh no, I'm here. Sorry, I was trying to look crystal clear like Ryan, but it's not working. No, I agree. Completely disconnect. I mean, obviously, spend time with loved ones. Just remember Fantrax is a game, or you can watch other sports that are going on right now. Right, rugby, cricket, World Cup. There's still ways to enjoy sports and not be kind of bogged down with how your season is going, et cetera. But yeah, I think we need to strongly remind people this is just a game. We're just here to have bands fun at the end of the day. Sure, we play for money, pride, etc. But all of that is actually I guess the money and pride and all that is irrelevant when it comes to mental health. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say more than that. Don't take it too seriously. That's all.
Yeah, I think it's fair. A couple of funny comments though. Julia Lovely Bones 4, international break sucks. Face it. I mean, I totally agree. Julia Lovely Bones 4.
I mean, that's a given.
Absolutely. And Prosh basically saying that fantasy losses don't affect him anymore because Chelsea's been preparing him for losses all year. So
I agree.
Also a pretty funny comment.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. Take a moment, check yourself, just see where you're at mental health wise, and take a little breather, debrief, and then come back to it. Get your waiver claims in, and we're gonna help you do just that today. So, guys, let's talk about some of our fantasy blind spots. So, like I said in the preamble, I've been mulling this over a little bit. I think there's some things that like perception is vastly different than reality this year. And I worry a little bit about that just in terms of sending out trade offers or appropriately evaluating players. Like, how are we going to do that if we don't actually have a handle on the reality of the situation? So fantasy blind spots. Are there players, entire teams, or positions where we might where our perceptions might clash with actual reality? So let's talk about the first one. I'm going to go ahead and make this full screen. These are going to be some full ass slides. So just be careful or be prepared. And also be careful. Put your glasses on. Don't strain your eyes. But I will go ahead and talk through them for audio listeners, and then I'll open it up and you guys can just have at it. So first one. Here's the perception. Everton are shit. This is the perception, right? Everton are shit. Everton are going to be battling it out for relegation all year. It's just going to be a slog. The reality of the situation, as many have posted online, on your screen, you see a tweet from StatsBomb with all of the various chances on goal that Everton have had all year. And the reality of the situation is Everton have the second highest XG of any team. Things to keep in mind as we discuss this, however, they have Liverpool and West Ham away coming up, followed by a home match against Brighton and then an away match against Palace. We also have rotation concerns with more and more players being healthy, especially in that midfield. And then my just general question, what the hell happened to Danjuma and Beto? So in any order, in any way you would like to attack this, guys, fantasy perception is that Everton are shit. What is the reality?
I think you're gonna have to pick someone, Joe.
All right, Totti.
Yes.
Greetings, my Hungarian friend. Tell me what you think about this.
Hello. Yeah, I think this whole fantasy blind spots thing is a very good idea by yourself.
Well, thank you.
And we do get these huge outliers like the aerial master that was Callum Peterson, and the dribble master that was Adama Traore, and people like that. But I wanted to, as I was preparing for this pod, I wanted to say, and I wanted to just shrug and say, fantasy players who have seen the scoring for players will have known that Everton are doing, like, the Everton assets are doing okay in the last few weeks. They weren't doing much good in the first few weeks, but in the last few weeks they've been scoring well. They've been creating chances. They have had fantasy relevant players all around the pitch, like in attack, in midfield, and defense. Very good, very fantasy relevant players. So I wanted to say, no, we're not discounting them because they are down low in the table. But then I was doing my weekly answering trade questions on our TDS feed, and before I want to preface this saying that I don't think we should judge this listener of ours, this reader of ours, this subscriber of ours. But the question was, should he drop Ollie Watkins for Nicholas Jackson? And besides the point, the main point that stuck with me and it's relevant here is that there are still a lot of teams, a lot of leagues, a lot of managers who don't go into the details like we do. So so circling back around to this being a very good idea from Joe. And yes, I think the perception is wrong. Everton are not shit. They're good. They are decent. They're not good either. They're decent.
Hold on.
They're decent. The one thing that I want to mention with XG is that, and we should, just like you always do an aside about ghost points. Joe. XG is basically the quantification of shots likeliness of going in and being a goal based on previous shots from the same area going in and being goals or non-goals. The fact that Everton are second highest in XG means that they are creating a lot of shots, which is good for our fantasy game. But the fact that they're second highest in XG and yet languish at the bottom of the table also is not necessarily, it's not something that can easily be just equal to they're gonna turn good and every Everton asset's gonna be good. The fact that they're not fulfilling their XG means that they are not very good players. Very good players routinely overperform their XG, meaning that when they have a shot and that shot's XG is 0.5, meaning half of the shots from that position usually go in, a Haaland would score not half of those shots, but 2/3 of those shots.
Right.
And Everton players are scoring 1/3 or a quarter of those shots. So they are good. They're good at creating chances and shooting opportunities, but they're still not very good at scoring them.
That's fair. They also did just get DCL back, which Ryan is having an argument with Ben Chickens in the chat currently about DCL. So discussions are Ryan, considering your feelings about their top number 9 striker, what are your thoughts in terms of this just perception versus reality?
I'm a little bit in the middle. I think the fact that they were relegation fodder the last few years definitely paints our perception of them being bad, and then of course add Dyche to that, and you just think, they're not a very good team. But obviously I've been reading the XG numbers kind of all season, and I've actually seen a fair amount of their games, unfortunately. So I can definitely attest that they're creating. But and in terms of fantasy, obviously they just had a monster. I think there's probably at least 6 players in their starting lineup that got double digits. So they're doing well. You alluded to it a little bit, that schedule over the last 3-4 game weeks has been probably as good as you can get outside of that Luton double game week. But so I think you got to take it with a grain of salt. That's why I think that I'm a little bit in the middle. They're better than we think. They're going to create chances. But I still think some guys are trade high right now after that little soft spot of their schedule. And then there's a few that will continue to do well, and you probably want to hold unless you can get a lot for them. So I think there's a dichotomy in the squad between those two categories. DCL is DCL is Reece James. point blank. He can have a couple
That's
decent
just
games.
rude.
He's healthier than Reece James, but
Thank you.
slightly. So I obviously don't trust him, and neither should you. So
Yeah, I mean, don't build a team around him in your fantasy team, but you ride until the wheels fall off, literally.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. But also 82% rostered right now should be 100. There's no reason that this player should not be on rostered in every single league. I mean, that's just seems like no-brainer value to me. Just, make sure that he's on your team. But I'm curious, just as somebody, I know, Sanji, at least you used to roster Beto. Where are you standing on him at the moment, considering DCL being back?
So I traded Beto out to the DCL owner.
Oh, smart.
Ended up getting Declan Rice. Was quite happy with that.
Yeah.
Nailed the Arsenal midfielder. Absolute ledge, by the way, man of the match in that win over Man City. Can't believe we didn't even give Ryan his opportunity to brag about that win.
Well, Ben Chickens is in the chat, so I didn't want to,
Beto's a tricky one. Like I don't know what to do about that, because Ryan has a great point. Like DCL is quite injury prone, so I mean he could just manage DCL. Beto might get the odd game here and there. I still think it's quite harsh to have dropped Beto. I thought maybe he would have tried to play both of them together, because I think Beto does offer something unique to that team. He passed the eye test for all of us, I think. But yeah, I didn't want that headache or have that concern about what he was going to do. And I mean, we are all quite aware that Everton's fixtures get quite difficult for the next while. So that was just another reason to kind of get rid of him while he was, I guess, as hot as possible, because he had one benching. I didn't want the situation to get worse where it turned into like, okay, now he's a streamer drop sort of situation. Let me try and get some value out of it. So it's like this whole XG stuff is very interesting to talk about, because I mean, there's so many different websites, so many data repositories that provide different, I guess, interpretation of how XG is calculated and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, it's that I think we can all agree that they are or should be near the top half of the table team, like maybe hovering 11, 12 based on what the data is suggesting at least.
Yeah.
And they're in 16th, and it's mind-boggling. Like one of the websites that you can like refer to data from FootMob, I think on their website they had Everton as top for big chances missed, 21. And after that, it's like two teams are in 17, Brentford and lo and behold, Chelsea, obviously.
Yeah.
But then you got Liverpool, etc., etc. So, I mean, yeah, like they all pretty much indicate the same thing. Is like, I think they're getting into good situations. They're playing good, like, decent football.
Yeah.
As in they really shouldn't be in the situation that they're in right now. But I mean, time will tell. We'll see how things go. And I mean, again, like going back to what Ryan said, how they kind of manage DCL and prevent him from getting injured again, etc. But I still think their backup plan is good enough. It'll be interesting to see how things unfold for their season. It could be like tight again towards the end of the season, but I still think there are three worse teams than them. So
yeah, I
think
think
they'll be fine.
I think you're right there. We'll get back to the XG conversation quickly, but Ryan, I do want you to know that I'm keeping an eye on Garner over the next couple of weeks. I may or may not have to amend my previous stance on James Garner as of just him not being very good. But Brentford, Luton, Bournemouth is not enough to turn my eye yet. Although I'm seeing them out of the corner of my eye at this point, just kind of noticing a little blur.
Yeah, no, that 3-game stretch was fantastic. I timed it pretty well, getting him, but I'm looking to trade him out.
Okay, fair.
Just because I like the fact that he stayed in the starting lineup with Harrison coming in, but if you take away that basically gifted goal, it was a great finish, but he was legit just kind of past the ball in front of the goal. If you take away that, it's only like I think 4 or 5 points. So my fears of him not ghosting as well in more of a central role, but having probably a bit more opportunity for attacking returns was at least in that game realized. And so you take that and extrapolate it with the upcoming schedule, and it's not a good recipe. So based off of that 3-game stretch, I'm seeing what I could get for him. And if I don't like what I get back, then I'm happy to keep him as a mid 4. But yeah, I'm just trying to test the waters because it's not looking good.
I think that's smart. Sanji, quickly again on the XG thing. So we didn't end up having a slide here for Chelsea tonight because I think we've talked about them quite a bit previously. But just in terms of Totti's point about XG, basically hinting to the fact that not necessarily always that a team is going to improve on a high XG but low actual goals. But sometimes it's just the fact that you just don't really have good goal scorers at all. Like, where do you land on that with Chelsea? I'm not trying to be a dick here. I'm just like, actually, where do you land on that with Chelsea in terms of underperforming XG?
I mean, I think eventually the dam will break in the sense that look at the performance versus it is Burnley and stuff like that, but the fact that we're still able to score 3+ goals or whatever, I think eventually that XG could possibly catch up in a very juicy fixture. I think the situation about our players not converting and stuff, I still think it has to do a bit with confidence, still betting in properly. I think you just really gotta give it time. Again, I know it was Burnley, but I was quite happy with the way Nico took his goal, for example. But yeah, I mean, with the whole Chelsea situation, we're playing good football, we've got decent defense. Again, it's just I think you just gotta give it time, and eventually the boys can convert. But I wouldn't be expecting anything like a top 4 finish or whatever. It'd be nice to finish in Europe, but again, if we don't score the goals, we're not going to get the points or win the games, etc. So I think time will tell. Just got to give it some time.
Yeah, that's fair. Totti, anything else on that? XG, just players being bad versus being unlucky?
No, I think the only thing is, again, something that we routinely talk about is that to remind our listeners to be ruthless with players who are underperforming, and even if they're performing to their expectation or a bit overperforming, don't tease with high upside. So I can understand Beto and Danjuma to a certain extent being held at this point, but someone like Branthwaite or Mikolenko or Ashley Young, however good they have been to you in the last 2 or 3 games,
right?
You have to be ruthless, even if it's just for a 1-game drop. Or you expect them to concede against Liverpool and West Ham at least. So if you're not starting them in the next 2 and they don't offer future huge upside,
then
just be ruthless.
Those guys are streamers, right? I mean, yeah. I think you're right. Okay, guys, let's get into the next one. So we've already been bantering a little bit in chat about Manchester City. So, of course, let's pour a little salt into the wound here. what is going on with Manchester City? Perception, of course, is that Manchester City assets are elite, absolutely elite. That's why we draft them where we draft them. First round, second round. Lucky if they fall to you in the third round. But here are the numbers for Manchester City assets over the last 3 game weeks against Nottingham Forest, Wolves, and Arsenal.
Where's Grealish? That's weird.
Where is Grealish?
He was injured for this stretch.
Oh, that's weird because I saw him fully fit on the bench a couple of times. It's odd.
I mean, the easy explanation is that you see, after speaking with Totti, I sorted this by fantasy points scored. Rather than roster percentage. I wanted to sort it by roster percentage, but then the fantasy points scored are all out of order and it just looks really awkward. But the reason Grealish isn't on here is because he scored negative 1.5 over the last 3 game weeks.
Oh, I thought he was injured. How do you get negative points if you don't play? Weird. This whole thing's so weird.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's our fantasy game's weird sometimes. But Yep. So Grealish negative 1.5, and then also this is a blast from the past. Grealish is an upstairs toy. Totti, if you ever want to,
broken toy.
If you ever want to go ahead and go into that metaphor again, sometime you certainly can. But so you're not going to see Grealish on here. You are not going to see Rodri on here for obvious reasons. He's also got a negative score. But regardless, over 3 game weeks, we've got, 4 players who have scored 20 or better. And one of those being Erling Haaland with 22 points, averaging 7 per match. And that's not something that you drafted him first overall, second overall, third overall, to have him doing that against Forest, Wolves, and Arsenal, especially having played all 270 minutes of those matches. So, gentlemen, what's going on with the City?
Well, they're clearly missing Rodri, I think, and missing Stones. The one player I wanted to highlight, and I had him on my team for a brief period of time and traded him out, and was braced to regret it, and I still don't regret it, is Phil Foden.
Oh, interesting.
Who after KDB's injury, everyone was expecting to step up and be the KDB replacement that he was promised to be all those years ago. And I have to again go back to Ryan's point of which has been said for a few years now, about Phil Foden, that he's just not someone who scores well in our fantasy game.
Interesting.
Obviously 12.83, 38, 39, 40 points in 3 game weeks is great, but we expect KDB or someone playing that role to get 38.5 against Nottingham Forest alone.
Right.
So yeah, I'm I got a good trade done, so it's not a value thing, but you guys know the feeling when you trade out a player that is good,
Mm-hmm.
even though you get value back, you feel FOMO for not having his scores on your team. And I've checked meticulously, and every time he scores well, he's playing decently. He hasn't been scoring above 20-ish all season, and I'm happy to have traded him out when I did. Otherwise it's just a bad run. I expect City to win all their games between the 1st of February and game week 38. So essentially, any of these City attackers that you can buy low, I would give an arm and a leg.
Okay.
I think Alvarez has been playing that KDB role. He's been taking a lot of the sets. He's been not just a goal threat. I think he's been a creative outlet as well. His points have been outside of the Arsenal game where 0 people scored well because they had 4 shots, none of which on target. So yeah, I think that Alvarez has kind of taken up that mantle, and not too many others have been able to score that well. Although I have to hold my hands up again in terms of, I think we all do, in terms of Doku coming in and
absolutely
and hitting the ground running. And yeah, now with folks getting healthy and all of that, I don't know if he'll continue, but yeah, I mean, fading Grealish this season was one of my, I don't want to say few, but one of my better analytic nuggets coming into the season.
Is there? I don't want to ramble on the Grealish point because we've talked about it, I think, on every pod this season a bit. Is there a point, or is there a value position that you would consider bringing him in?
I just, his name recognition is so big.
Yep.
You can't get him for what his current value is.
This is part of the reason I wanted to do this exact segment, the fantasy blind spots, because there are players like Grealish where their draft day value, like, people just aren't realistic at this point, and nobody appears to be like changing their valuation of these players. They're still expecting something back, like that's going to be, earth shattering, that's going to be first and second round value, when here we are almost 9 weeks into the season and I'm sorry, dude, your player's just not very good. And so don't come at me and try to get Doucouré from me, who is the number 8 midfielder overall, and give me some player whose form is just absolute dog shit, right? Like, this is why I think managers really need to like check these blind spots, because I mean, I find myself, doing it as well, where it's you're still grasping at straws of draft day value, but at this point, we're a week. We got to start being realistic about these things.
Yeah, but just to be clear for myself and for the listeners as well, you weren't offered Grealish for Doucouré.
No, but I do think that's about the value, and I would decline that if somebody offered me.
Yeah, that would be scoffed at, I think.
Yeah,
by a Grealish roster.
Were you expecting Doucouré to end rest of the season though, of all midfielders?
I don't know. But Sanjay, I was offered Ryan Christie for him. So
I know the trade. I was just trying to protect that placement, but clearly we're gonna shoot all the shots.
I'm not telling his name. I'm not saying his name. But it was not a great trade.
But like, where would you expect Doucouré to finish rest of the season? Because maybe other people have this wild take that eventually the points will kind of normalize. There'll be some form of regression.
Yeah.
Like now with the Everton fixtures, like for example, maybe it changes, right? And players coming back in, maybe Beto comes in, they do 4-4-2, some wildness happens, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's one of the reasons. Obviously, like, you should have been offered better than Ryan Christie. 100% agree. But if someone came to you with Grealish, offering you Grealish for Doucouré, and there was maybe some hint that Grealish was slowly getting embedded back in, because I mean, I understand like Man City their assets have all started like shit, but I think we also need to remember that the situation has also changed for Man City compared to last season. I think we should also somewhat expect a bit of a drop. They some respect still needs to be put on the name. They are treble winners, right? They were always going to, I think, some of the assets come back a bit stale drunk, for example Grealish especially, and like losing players like Gundogan in the midfield, and the last couple of games Rodri being out. So like the situation hasn't been completely easy for them. Even Pep was away from the team for a while, recovering from back surgery and all that. And I think all those factors should be taken into consideration with how the team performs on the pitch and stuff like that. Go ahead, Totti.
No, I agree, and I think this point, Sanji's point, actually turns around to the different valuations managers have, and the main difference, and that's what Joe, you said as well, is are you valuing your player or the player you're trying to trade for based on what has already happened, or are you valuing them based on what you're expecting to happen? And if you're expecting something different to happen as opposed to the first 9 game weeks, then why you're expecting something different to happen? So it's like I think Grealish is a decent example, and if we want to stick with the Man City players, and maybe Kovacic is another example of a different sort. So, like, myself included, I expect Grealish to, when he's healthy, and at this point he's being played in the Champions League with less tempo and less physicality, and I expect him to start a bunch after the international break. So I expect him to score similarly to how he has scored in the end of last season. So and him missing actual games and not being there means that the first 9 weeks are probably irrelevant for his valuation. Whereas when you're looking at Kovacic, he has actually played. And before the season, as we were planning for draft, we were wondering how he's going to take on that role Gundogan left. And is he going to be a prolific scorer in the ilk of Ilkay Gundogan? Or is he just going to be Kovacic from Chelsea? And like, if you started trade negotiation now and you try to convince someone that Kovacic is the second coming of Ilkay Gundogan, then that other person would have 9 game weeks of data to show you that he is not that. So I think there is a is a fine sort of mix of adding like experience, previous like 9 weeks of experience, and future expectation.
And the thing is, I don't think Pep has even figured out the best way to use all his new assets as well. Like, even going back to the Kovacic thing, he was absolute shit in the last couple of games. He should have been sent off versus Arsenal. Like, he's really struggling in that role. Twice. He's really struggling in that role without Rodri, right? And you would have thought maybe, he was the one that benefited, but it was Rodri that actually benefited a lot more with Kovacic in that team. So I think, again, maybe City is just one of those teams that we need to give a bit of time to see how their assets will finally properly settle in, and like their players as well, right? And how Pep kind of comes up with another new mad system of how to chase another title down. But I mean,
that then every other manager copies.
Yeah. Everyone's gonna be like a season behind except Arteta. Maybe Arteta seems to be doing something right at the moment. But no, I mean, like right now, you're talking about having Doucouré being at 8th best mid, and Ryan talking about getting rid of his Everton assets on a high. Right now, if you were offered Grealish for Doucouré, would you really not consider it?
I'd consider. I don't know that I'd do it, but I'd consider it. Because here's the thing. I mean, I drafted you asked what's my expectation of him rest of season. I mean, if he's a midfielder 2, I drafted him as a midfielder 4 or 5. So I'm very happy. Like I'm absolutely happy with that. So
yeah, but what are you expecting Grealish to be?
Exactly. So that being the case, if Grealish's promise means that, I would consider that just because of like Evan said in chat, it's opportunity, not performance with Grealish, whereas some other assets have already shown us that they don't quite have what it takes. Looking at like Kai Havertz and Grealish hasn't quite had that opportunity yet. I mean, he has and he hasn't. There's been a couple matches, but overall, he really hasn't had a chance to settle in.
I'm sure that all 3 of you will be on the other side of this trade, but I just did a trade last week selling Ward-Prowse and Declan Rice to get back Grealish and Mbomo.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, I'm on the other side of that.
I'm on the other side of that too.
Totti, I can take your side just to take the piss, but I love that when Joe took a dig at Kai, Ryan really took that personally.
That was completely unnecessary.
He's looking at his wrist right now because he has a Kai tattoo right there on his wrist.
I mean, what is that? Is that 2 attacking returns in 2 games? Man is on form, yo.
Stop.
It is Rashford numbers.
Okay, I drafted the man. I would love for the whole thing to be true, but it's not. He's terrible.
Just to put a bow on this Man City thing.
Yeah, please.
They're doing fine. It's just that the points are largely concentrated in 2 players, Haaland and Alvarez. I mean, no other team has 2 top 10 players.
Good point.
So they're doing fine. Having said that, as I said in the chat, they've had one of the easiest opening schedules known to man, and it's getting difficult. So I want to see how they do in this stretch. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's fair. It's just more dispersed.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. When are you calling up the KDB manager for a trade?
It's funny you mentioned that. I was just like randomly thinking about that today. I'm not going to, because they've held this long and they're going to be the grouchiest, most insufferable people on earth to try and negotiate with. So, I mean, given his age and possibility of re-aggravating it, I'm good.
I'm the same way there, but yeah, I think there is an opportunity. There is going to be an opportunity when rotation comes around, and it looks like the manager is not able to field 10, let alone 11, with KDB and another injured player on there. You can go for him, but I agree.
Season be good for that. Though.
Yeah, exactly. I agree, though. I'm not spending, like, if I can get him for a streamer or like a low level mid 5 or something like that, a Brownhill maybe. Yeah, I'd maybe do that later.
Yeah.
In December, but not now. So.
Yeah, I think Ryan's right, unfortunately, because I've had conversations with the Olise owner. I've had conversations with Nkunku owners. I've tried to kind of set the table a little bit for okay, what would an acceptable offer be? They are holding on to draft day value like crazy right now, and I don't know if it's clutching at straws or what it is, but those people in specific, the ones who drafted them and still have them, are, I mean, their season hinges on those players coming good.
I mean, once you've decided that you're keeping them, and not dropping them and selling them, then you're keeping them for first round, second, and end of season value. And
right,
why would you give them up for peanuts?
Yeah. I mean, if you believed in them at the beginning of the season, why should any of that change now? You knew they were going to be injured. They're still injured. Yeah, that's interesting. All right, let's move, boys. So up next, this one was recommended by one of the wonderful humans who is obviously a member of the Draft Society, but also in chat tonight. Gavin Wright. So the perception, this is Fantasy Blind Spot. Perception is goalkeepers are unpredictable and not worth ranking or drafting. The reality is that we have 2 goalkeepers who are averaging 10 plus in terms of points per start. 3 more who are in the 9 points per start. And as far as points per start ranking overall in terms of players, we have, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. We have 8 in the top 100 players in terms of points per start rankings. So is it time to address our misconception that goalkeepers are unpredictable and not worth ranking or drafting?
They're not worth ranking because I just don't want to do it. And it's really hard to compare their value to outfielders. It's just really difficult. So I don't see much value in that. Having said that, they're definitely worth drafting. That's why I made it a point last season and this season to take Lino in like the 12th or 13th round in all of my leagues, because they can be game changers, as you can see from these stats. So yeah, I'm all for getting a set and forget goalkeeper, because I used to stream them and it's a nightmare.
Thing about goalkeepers is like, and you can see this on the screen. I'll kind of dictate for audio listeners, but like we have, basically all of the top scoring goalkeepers from Jose Sa all the way down to Kaminsky on the screen right now. And what is very, very obvious, glaring here is the floor. All of these goalkeepers, their floor is not just single digits, but you are lucky if the floor is above 2, right? Like many of these goalkeepers, their floor is negative points. But a lot of them are, between 1 and 2.5. And then the very, very good ones, the great fantasy assets, they might be above 2.5, bordering up into 3. But the floor is exactly why goalkeepers are pegged, I think, as unpredictable.
I think it would have been really nice to also have the ADP numbers next to all of these goalkeepers, because I'm definitely of the viewpoint that you should never draft a goalkeeper during a draft. I still think you can find some 16th outfielder gem during your draft, and then worry about goalkeepers later. Because right now, for example, 4th best scoring goalkeeper right now, Alphonse Areola, his ADP on Fantrax at the moment is 399.
Meaning he wasn't drafted.
Yeah, right.
What was Allison? Do you have that in front of you?
72.3. I hate people that draft Allison.
72.3.
Oh, yeah. It's madness. So Sam Johnstone, 287.48. What is that, last? Is that last round or something? Or is that even on the board? I can't do math right now.
No.
Way too tired. I think, and the thing is, I think people also lose patience with goalkeeper assets, because it's like you talk about the floor. There's going to be that one random game where one of the goalkeepers will get like a -1 or like a 1 point, and you drop them. Next game week, 100%, the same goalkeeper could easily smash 20 points, and then all of a sudden you're regretting it. The position set, like the team kind of their team kind of settles. The defense is performing maybe a bit better. Maybe the goalkeeper is performing a bit better. And then eventually I think you can find a gem, because I feel like even people who drafted Andre Onana, his ADP was 85.36, and he's like the 12th ranked goalkeeper at the moment. Like he's free in one of my leagues right now. Like everyone dropped him. So I think Like people still to this day move way too early on goalkeepers, and I feel like it's one of those situations where, right? I mean, you said it as well, right? They can't match the outfielder potential, so why even bother drafting them at all?
Let me read out our 12th round in our league.
Okay. Yes, please, please.
The league,
I'm here for this.
in which I drafted Leno in the 12th round.
Okay.
Tom Lockyer, Nick Pope, David Brooks, Bernd Leno, Ruben Diaz, Tavernier, who was probably dropped after that, Zinchenko. Well, Allison went late. Buonanotte, Lewis Hall, the Butcher, and Guardiola.
Yeah. Yeah, those are all. I mean, those are all either dart throws or super low floor defenders.
So why not take a sure thing goalkeeper that you don't have to worry about? I'm not saying take Allison in the 9th. I'm saying 12th or 13th. Better to get one of the elite goalkeepers. And I'm not saying take any goalkeeper there. There's only a handful that I would take, but in any draft. But there you go.
I mean,
you'd rather have Leno than anybody else there.
Yeah, but the thing is, I still think you can also stream that position. Have you not gone through the pain of Leno also giving you negative points in a game week?
Only once this year. Literally one time.
Yeah, any goalkeeper can do that, but he's going to get you a lot more points more often than not, more often than Tom Lockyer.
Yeah, but would you, I mean, I understand Tavernier is like...
There's only one team that could pick up an Areola. Yeah, there's always like one or maybe two goalkeepers that end up being rest of season holds. I'd rather not take that chance of having to be the one team that gets lucky with one of those guys. Like, why not take that risk off the table?
Yeah, but you're telling me you'd rather Leno than Tavernier?
No, he did. I guarantee that person didn't hold Tavernier that entire time, and that's one out of the 12 picks in that round that is actually somewhat even close to Leno. So play the odds, friend.
Yeah, they probably they probably dropped.
To go for a more analytical view on goalkeepers, as long as you are in a league that has to start a goalkeeper, which I think most leagues are that configured that way, that you absolutely have to start a goalkeeper, then you're essentially comparing the goalkeeper's value to other positional value doesn't really matter in that sense. You have to compare the goalkeeper's value, for me at least, you have to compare that goalkeeper value to other goalkeepers' value. As in if you're going to have to start a goalkeeper anyway, then why not lock that position down with a player who will most likely get you quality starts 90-80% of the time, and have that steady flow of 8 to 9 points.
There you go.
Yep. So we're going to start ranking them then.
We should. I think we should.
Amongst themselves. I'll do just a goalkeeper ranking of the top 15, but not amongst the other outfielders.
I mean, at this point, the top goalkeepers are producing as much war as Marcus Rashford, Bruno Guimaraes, Simon Dingra, Taiwo Awoniyi, Willian, Lyle Foster, Jeremy Doku, Jordan Ayew, Ryan Christie, the aforementioned. So they're like, even if it's value compared to other positions, they are there or thereabouts for players who you would probably keep on your team regardless of position.
Yeah.
So yeah, we should rank them.
And Gavin, the person who thought to propose this talking point today, mentions that only about 20 to 24% of starting goalkeepers in the player pool, and 10 of them are in the top 100 for fantasy points right now. That's interesting. It's interesting. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think we've probably been undervaluing them a little bit for, maybe too long. So, I'm here for the conversation.
Justice for goalies.
Justice for goalies. Absolutely. There's been sort of a scoffing for a long time at keepers, I think, in this game. And I think, it's I've always been of the mindset of find one of the ones who's slightly underrated. I was with Ryan this year on Leno. But then in my IGL league, I have Jose Sa. I dropped him for 1 week and was lucky to get him back, and I think I'm just going to hold him the rest of the season. So,
as you should.
So, justice for keepers. I like it. Let's move on. All right, guys. This is another one proposed by Gavin. This is a really interesting talking point. So here's the perception. Fantasy blind spot. Here's your perception. Highly goal-dependent forwards are streamers at best and not permanent fixtures in your team. This was brought about because of that Korean guy, Hwang. And so the question is, okay, but what if they score enough goals to where they're not really that boom or bust? They just score goals. They're a contributor to your team because they score enough goals where they are actually a pretty valuable forward to roster, regardless of the fact that they don't score a ton of ghost points. There's a stat head, one could say, in our Draft Society chat, who said, quote, ghost points are close to irrelevant for strikers in our group chat today. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about that. And then the aforementioned Hwang, right? 5 goals from 1.2 XG this season. So what you see on your screen are forwards that are down the list. Notice starts with Lyle Foster at 8.6 points per game, points per start. That's leaving out a lot of the players, a lot of the forwards who, hate to say it, do actually score ghost points. But this is sort of starting the list at a lot of those players that are a little bit more goal dependent that you'll see on your screen currently. Players like your Fosters, your Nketiahs, Ayu on his day. Sometimes he'll ghost, but other times he doesn't at all. Mikel Antonio, obviously. Hwang, Nicholas Jackson so far, I'll say. Your Burnley forwards, Jacob Brown, these types of guys. So where do we stand, guys, on the perception of highly goal-dependent forwards are streamers at best and not permanent fixtures in your team?
I can take a crack at that. I think there are 2 important factors that you have to consider in terms of this topic. I mean, first, I obviously prefer forwards that can ghost, and despite what is in that bullet point, there are a fair amount of forwards and strikers that can ghost and score. So it's not a false choice there. Having said that, I've thought about this quite a bit, and I think you can rely on forwards that are goal dependent, but one, they have to be, in terms of roster construction, they can't be your only forward or your forward one. You need to offset their boom or bust characteristics with other people who can ghost or are more reliable on that front. So you can play a roster Callum Wilson, which I think you should, for that boom quality, but you need somebody else that can ghost a little better, an Alvarez, a Jesus, someone like that. And 2, it depends on how many goals they score. I mean, yeah, you can hold a goal dependent striker if they'll score once every 2 or 3 games, but you can't if they score once every 4. You just can't take those 0s and 2s for 3 game weeks in a row. So I think it comes down to roster construction. Can you offset that boomer bust quality with more reliable ghosters? And two, what is the cutoff in which they score enough where you can hold those 0s or 2s in your roster? So that would be my take.
We should mention that ghost points, of course, are those fantasy points that players score in this game that we play here on Fantrax that are not linked to goals, assists, or clean sheets. So we're talking shots on target, we're talking key passes, aerials won, those kinds of things that forwards often get. Anyone else's take on highly goal-dependent forwards?
Yeah, the less goals they score, the lower they are on your roster, essentially. So I think, yeah, Haaland scores enough goals not to be droppable, whereas Nketiah or Mateus Cunha doesn't score enough goals not to be droppable. And there is a bunch of players between those, and you have to think about the balance of minimal ghosts and goals to determine if they're rosterable. Like, there are some players there in that chart that should be rostered, even though they are a pain to be rostered. Honestly, I think with forwards and the possibility of them scoring well in your team in even the forward 2 or the forward 3 position on your starting 11, it's only the forwards from the very worst teams and forwards who have a limited opportunity to actually get minutes that are definitely droppable. Like, I'd probably sort of have the line with starting relegation candidate forwards and non-starting forwards from teams from 7th down to relegation candidates. But like, Beto is a good example, someone who is still rostered in all of my leagues and should be, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, when we talk about forward scoring ghost points or whatever, who would you consider to be the quintessential ghost point scorer at the forward position?
Neto.
Okay, so if you want to say Pedro Neto, he's going to be the player that you could start, even if he doesn't score a goal or get an assist. He's going to be the guy you can start. You're going to be pretty confident he's going to score you points, right? Regardless. So he is 36% dependent on goals, assists, clean sheets for his fantasy points. That is very, very good. What you're seeing with other forwards, for example, Watkins and Haaland are both tied at 57% dependent on goals, assists, and clean sheets for their fantasy points. Even Mohamed Salah, 51%, right? Alexander Isak, 58%. Somebody like Carlton Morris, who we know is an aerial god, only 40% dependent on goals, assists, clean sheets. So yeah, I mean, there are definitely forwards who score well without scoring goals. Jeremy Doku is 16% dependent on goals, assists, clean sheets for his fantasy points. So it exists. They're definitely unicorns, but they exist.
Yeah, but not many.
No, for sure, not at all.
Erling Haaland is sixth best ghost point scorer
among forwards. and he's 57% defended. That's crazy. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. So essentially the saying of around 50% dependence is good for a forward.
Mm-hmm.
They just need to be on the pitch enough and score enough goals to get peripheral ghosts to get you there.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, move on from that one. We've got one left. Fantasy blind spot. Perception is I can always just stream a defender. Ryan, this was your brainchild. I can always just stream a defender. Consider, can you actually? Defenders kind of suck this year. So as you're looking at the statistics on screen, the table, as you will, on screen, I've basically scrolled past all of the defenders who are kind of your set and forget guys who do have some ghost points to their name. This list starts with Josko Gvardiol and goes through players like your Malo Gustos, your Gabriel Magalhaes, Kyle Walker, Michele Akanji, Varane, Zinchenko, Mikolenko, Kurt Zuma, Rico Henry, these types of players, right? And what you notice is that their goals, assist, clean sheet percentage, we were just talking about for forwards, is unfortunately quite high. But if it's not, then they're usually on a bad team that concedes a lot of goals if they're streamer level, right? A defender. So you're gambling a lot more than you'd really want to week in, week out. So how are you guys? I don't know. How are you guys conceptualizing this?
I always used to say you can stream defenders. Wrote an article on it, but yeah, we can just see statistically that it's just getting tougher and tougher. I think, unfortunately, there's the dynamic where there are a handful of defenders that are set and forget, and then for the rest of the spots, I hate to say it, but I mean it stands to reason that this season, the rest of your streaming defenders, you're just basically looking at matchup. So any defenders against the three promoted sides look pretty good based on these numbers. Outside of the 5 to 10 probably set and forget defenders that are out there, and so unfortunately, I think that's kind of where we're at. The random ghosting defender outside of Boley and a handful of others just doesn't really exist that much anymore, and so you got to go a lot more matchup dependent, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the issue with defensive ghost points is something that, again, me and Ryan have talked about a lot. I think Nelson Semedo was the patient zero of ghosting defenders who are not worth rostering. Because when he came in, he actually did very well ghost points wise, but you have to consider ghost points very differently for defenders as opposed to midfielders and forwards, because the -2s for the goals are hitting those ghost points very hard. So essentially you have to be proportionately better ghoster in defense than in midfield or in forward to be fantasy relevant. And just to give some historical insight into why for the last 2 or 3 seasons we have been seeing a steady decline in ability to stream defenders, and we have looked at this from a lot of different angles. But the crux of the thing is that in the last 7 seasons, the aerials, the number of aerials which is the most overpowered scoring statistic for defenders we have, has dropped by around 15% in the last 6 years.
Oh, wow.
So essentially, players who 5 years ago scored 7 or 8 ghost points will be scoring almost a point less. So yeah, that just kills the value of streaming defenders, and it is a trend that can be seen for the last 6-7 years, which doesn't look like it's going to subside. And this is just a side note for anyone who's listening and interested. We have actually started a league, 2 leagues, in fact, that are using an experimental new scoring that tries to fix this and other issues that we are seeing with our scoring system. Initially, it's looking like the defensive streaming has gone up, so the average score for a player in both the new scoring and the old scoring is around 8 points per game or per start, and defenders are currently scoring around 6 in our scoring, and in the new scoring they are closer to 7.5. So essentially, they're not just helping. The new scoring is not just helping with streaming; it's helping with overall value for a positional group that is being overlooked.
Does that also incorporate the rule where they don't get penalized for the first goal against?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Yeah. I really like that. I like that leagues have incorporated that.
Yeah.
I think that should absolutely be something
And
that
without
this widespread.
without wanting to go too deep into scoring discussions, without the stat people of the Draft Society being on here to help us out if we're saying stupid things. The issue, and I want to stress this to all our listeners, because based on our perception from the forums and from talking to people on the on social media, these most of the people have some sort of differentiation in their scoring, be it minor in most cases. I want to advise that you seek guidance before you start tweaking scoring, because a droplet, like a small scoring change, can cause a huge difference in valuation, and that's some of the issue with the no minus points for goals thing. While it helps center backs, it skyrockets value of wing backs. So you have to look at the scoring as a holistic thing, and change. You can't change one or add one scoring category and then not balance it out with others as well. So yeah, we'll be hoping to report back to our listeners and readers on how the experiment with the new scoring is going. But going back to the original idea, defenders kind of suck this year.
No, I think Ryan, you talked. I mean, you hinted at it before, but I mean, just streaming against bad teams, like that seems to be just the way to go this year.
Yeah, I mean, I hate that because it takes a lot of the nuance and strategy out of it.
Yeah.
But there's really no. This is the way.
Yeah, and it comes up with one of my big pet peeves, which is the random 0-0 draws.
Yeah.
That happen in matches that might as well end up as being 3-3 draws, and Mark Gahey's and Joel Ward's and
Whoa,
anyway.
whoa, whoa!
Okay, not Joel Ward's, Mark Gahey's and
Joe
Matt-
Worrells and
Joe Worrells and Mads Roslevs and
Roslav's never had a clean sheet.
and the kind. I hope he never does. Lucking into a clean sheet and scoring close to or even above 10 points as a result.
No. Yeah. Anything, Sanji?
No. I mean, you guys have really
Covered it.
nailed all the points and stuff like that. I wouldn't want to drag this conversation longer than it has. This is supposed to be a short pod as well.
Sanji, we say that every time.
I know.
Still
Yeah,
shorter than the Banter Boys.
Also, if you're
yeah,
not, if you're not into short pods, might I suggest you check out the Banta Boys podcast.
There you go. At least 2 hours, right? We're making sure we cover your commute to and from work.
Exactly.
But
Might need to move a little bit further away, though.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we account for traffic, right? That's the thing.
Precisely.
We cater for all audiences. Yeah, I mean, I pretty much I think stream just the one defensive position in a couple of my leagues as well. Yeah, I mean, as annoying as it is, I guess it's kind of convenient in that sense as well. I don't mind the convenience. But yeah, it's useful, especially sometimes just matching your I guess your opposition or whatever. So for example, if they have a Tarkowski, you can, I mean, I'm not saying to definitely do it, but you could gamble on, like, you know, grabbing the Ashley Young that would be free, and you could probably get the clean sheet there or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like, for example, I had Emerson, and my opponent streamed Naya for Garrett, and Garrett put up 20, and Emerson only got 14 with the clean sheet. So, yeah, I'm kind of grateful that it is a viable strategy in that sense. Otherwise, it would be, I think, a lot harder to kind of just have a Hail Mary punt to kind of win your game week sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because if everyone just had good players, and there's obviously going to be, you know, the lower teams in your standings with shit options, like, it just gives everyone a bit of a fighting chance. So
I don't know that it's ever been this bad before. I mean, we currently have what? Let's see. 1, 2 defenders in the top 25 scorers. 2.
I remember a similar discussion from last year about the same time.
Was it? Okay. But what was it Kieran Trippier and Joachim Anderson?
It was not.
Oh, that's
It was
amazing.
Trips for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely Trips.
Yeah,
It was definitely Trips.
It might actually have been Anderson as well. I remember he came out of the gates storming.
He did,
well, but
which is why you should be.
I think it was more short-lived.
But that's just my opinion. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, okay. We don't have to belabor this, but yeah, for sure. How many goalkeepers? Yes, Gavin. I understand. In the top 25? In the top 25. I don't think any, my friend. But I can look. Yeah, that's a confirmed no. But I take your point. Give
it up, man.
All right, guys. Let's oh wait, sorry. My bad. Ryan, this was to further your point. I forgot I included the slide in here. This was to further your point. So this is just the fixture difficulty tracker for game week 9. Right? Fixture difficulty tracker for game week 9. And this is just to show viewers / tell listeners about what we're talking about in terms of, okay, our fixture difficulty tracker is designed to show you not only which teams have the best upcoming fixtures, but also what do players of that position normally score against certain teams. So if you look at the top teams in the fixture difficulty tracker, and this is just for this one singular game week, you have Forest, but that's only because they're facing Luton, who will allow 9.3 on average points for defenders facing them. Crystal Palace, 9.3. Burnley, 9.1. Everton, 8.8. Wolves, 8.7. Bournemouth, 8.7. West Ham, 8.6. Sheffield United, 7.9. So not quite what you're saying about stream every defender against every promoted team, but pretty damn close.
Yeah. I'd like to look at the interesting ones like Spurs being in the bottom half and Sheffield United at 10.
Yeah. Sheffield United allowing 7.9, you would expect them to be a lot lower.
Yeah. Or higher.
Well, yeah, depending on the stat, right? But yeah, higher in points allowed to defenders on average. Yeah, for sure. So that's interesting, at least. So anyway, all right, let's move, boys. All right, GW9 streamers, 1 week plays with high upside. I don't know that Genie's going to join us. That was the mystery guest who was maybe going to join us, maybe not. So he does have some picks in here. We'll gloss over them if he hasn't joined us by then. But regardless, let's hit the listeners / viewers with GW9 streamers and go ahead and sign off. So Totti, who do you got for this week? Well, next week.
Yeah, I've looked at the fixture difficulty tracker and some punts there as well. I have Rafa Varane. I think people will be picking up Evans and Maguire, thinking that they will start, but Varane was actually very close to starting, and I expect him to start against Sheffield United after we are back. So I think he's a decent streamer. Dominguez did not score a goal last week, but after the injury scare in his first start, he actually started again and did decently. I think he scored around 5-6 points, and he's facing Luton.
That's all you need to hear.
Exactly. The experiment with Harvey Elliott in midfield, I think, failed. I didn't want to say failed, but
yeah,
it did fail.
Yeah.
And when Gravenberch came on, he actually looked much livelier and hit the post a few minutes after he came on at the half against Brighton. So I expect him to start in Curtis Jones's absence, and Chris Wood is deputizing for Taiwo Awoniyi. As much as I don't expect him to put up Awoniyi numbers, it's Luton.
Yeah, no, fair. Totti Fionn Maxey, as you can see on the screen right now, has said, wait, hold on, you just told us that Sheffield United doesn't actually give up that great of average points to defenders, and then you tell me to stream Varane. What's going on?
Yeah, because they don't give up a lot of ghost points, but I still expect United to have a decent chance of keeping a clean sheet.
Yeah, same, as you'll see in my streamers. All right, I like it. Okay, Ryan.
All right. Murillo, interesting case of basically a defender classified as a mid, scoring 14.5 ghosts last week without getting the defender clean sheet points.
Yeah.
So very interesting case. Obviously, there's a possibility of it being a one-hit wonder. His Maradona slaloming run that included, I think, several successful dribbles and
That's
a shot
so
on
awesome.
target. Yeah, it was amazing. That might be the aberration because I think his previous start, he only got a few. But you take the 14.5, and then you add into the factor that they're playing again against Luton. Not to beat up against Luton. Love me some Totti and all that, but yes, Luton are very generous indeed. So if you're banking on a midfield streamer, Murillo might be your guy. Nathan Collins versus Burnley. It's obviously not your mother's Sean Dyche Burnley, but they still are generous as well. If Pinnock for some reason is not in there due to this nagging injury, Collins can step up and get the aerials and goes decently. And they have even though Brentford has been pretty bad in terms of not conceding, Burnley haven't scored that many goals, and I think Brentford's due at some point. So he's not your worst bet in terms of streaming defenders. Odebear on the flip side was a revelation for Burnley last week. Scored really well, took his goal well, but also I think ghosted 7 or 8 points, which is great again for a forward. So he's a decent shout this week, and if he can keep it up, possibility of a longer term hold given their schedule. So that's your lot.
Yeah, I like that. I like that one. Okay. Sanji, do you want to take genies?
Do I have to?
You don't have to, but
Don't say McSauce.
you were partially complicit in putting them in the document, right?
I don't know which one is worse, McSauce or Bilva.
You mean just in terms of being insufferable to say?
Yeah.
It's definitely
Yeah.
McSauce.
Yeah, McSauce is probably worse.
I won't say that. In fact, I refuse right now to say that. So I'm just going to refer to him as Scott, which is maybe even worse, honestly. All right, McTominay, Reece Burke versus Forest, and Højbjerg versus Fulham. These are Genie's streamers for this week. What do we think about these guys?
McSauce is a pipe dream.
I doubt Højbjerg starts.
Really?
Højbjerg's his only reason to start is the Basuma suspension, right? But they could also field like Skip or somebody there.
And Bentancur may be back as well.
He won't be ready to start. So I think there's a decent chance that Højbjerg gets the start. I just don't think he's going to score as well as Basuma in that role. And plus, it's the last game of the game week, so he's decent cover if you're worried about somebody in that Fulham Spurs game on Monday. But I don't know if I'd depend on him.
Yeah, spend some time with Højbjerg's numbers. You won't love what you see. Because I thought about adding him into my list and I didn't. So, all right, let's move. Sanji.
I love that Fiona stole my pick before my slide even came up. So, like, my picks get worse as we go.
That's not what you want to say.
Starting with Strakosha. So Flecken is out with some undisclosed illness.
They disclosed it already. He has appendicitis.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Rough. That's rough. So he's out for like a few weeks, a month, something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, to be honest, if it wasn't for that, I think like fans were kind of saying that Strakosha deserves a chance or a shout because Flecken's debut so far this season has been a mixed one, to say the least. That being said, I heard Strakosha got worse as the game went on, so I don't know. make of that what you will. But I think the fact that Brentford still concede chances, I think he's still gonna get save points. So it's one of those situations. If you're struggling for a keeper, again, maybe you're one of those managers that streams goalies. He might be one to kind of consider for the next maybe little while. What is his games? Burnley at home, Chelsea away, West Ham at home. So I mean, you could get him for the Burnley game and then just hold on to him for a couple of games as well. But yeah, I think it's a decent shot if you need a goalkeeper this week. I gotta give my boy Lyle Foster some
course.
love as
You see
always.
a permanently there in your slide.
He should be.
Yeah. I mean, when I copy pasted the slide, I deleted everything but his name.
I think until he's like 40 or 50% rostered, you just keep him there.
Yeah.
Or 0% rostered.
I mean, do you know who? Lyle has more points than one Darwin Nunez for the season so far. By the way, he has 5
triple the
attacking.
starts.
It's all right. Still, it's the points that counts, not the starts.
Kai is ghosting better, by the way.
Is Kai actually ghosting better?
He is.
Oh,
Sorry.
that Loki. I don't know if that makes me happy or hurts my soul.
Darwin Nunez.
This
I'm
is your
so-
fault, Ryan.
I'm so sorry. Go
I
ahead.
take full credit.
But I mean, like, if we're gonna suggest the likes of like Odebear, etc. I and the point of Burnley's fixtures turning as well, because they had a very difficult start to the season. So I think like saying that they had low XG or whatever is quite harsh. And I think they will get better and they potentially can score more goals. So I'm gonna suggest Lyle Foster, Brentford away, Bournemouth away, Crystal Palace at home. Next 3, it's decent fixtures. I think he can easily get a couple of attacking returns in the next few games. Johnny Evans versus Sheffield United. So I feel like United's results have been better when he's actually played. He got, what was it, 8.5 ghost points, I think, versus Brentford. I think he has some attacking threat on set pieces as well. Not saying he's guaranteed to start, but I feel like him and Varane really should be the starting centre-back pair because you're not starting Maguire, surely not.
Well, hold on. Just let me say my piece in a second.
Sorry, I didn't look at the other slides. Maybe I should be mashing all the assets. I mean, this is maybe just personal preference of starting centre backs for Manchester United, but I think he's definitely worth a punt. In terms of the fixtures, I think he's the last game on that Saturday. So, I mean, your options of switching to defenders are probably West Ham versus Aston Villa, and Aston Villa have been really good at home. So, it's very much like a depth sort of option, I think, at that point. And finally, Luis Sinisterra. He hasn't gotten his first start for the season yet, but in his 2 30-minute cameo appearances off the bench, he put up 6.5 ghost points each. So I feel like eventually he should get a start. I think he's way too good to be just coming off the bench. And his fixture is early enough that, okay, if he doesn't start, you can drop him. And I like the fixture against Wolves as well. They concede decent amounts of XG every now and then. And they're right now, Wolves are known for their attack, not their defense at the moment. So yeah, Luis Sinisterra would be my final streamer pick.
I like it. All right. So as mentioned, I do have Maguire in mind. Only because
we are suggesting 3 center backs from
they don't have fullbacks fit at the moment. They got to play some kind of defender.
They're not all going to start. So Maguire historically has ghosted fairly well. That's the reason I include him on here. Now, obviously, if he doesn't start, clearly don't start him. But as you mentioned, being later in the game week, yeah, I mean, I might opt for like a Nottingham Forest defender instead. one of the fullbacks, or sorry, one of the center backs there. But just in terms of Maguire, you know, if you have some flexibility still at that point in the game week, he has shown us that he can ghost fairly well. Say what you will about him, but you know, and he'll pop up with a random attacking return as well. So you could do worse, unfortunately, than Mr. Slabhead there. But that's not the one I'm excited about. The one I'm excited about is actually Frank Onyeka if he starts. The reason I say that is because he hasn't actually played more than 30 minutes yet this season, but in every single appearance that he's had pretty promising points when you consider the amount of minutes that he's played. So 3 points in 19, 1.5 in 20, 1.5 in 28, 3 points in 17, 11 points in 18 minutes, 2.5 points in 18 minutes. Extrapolate those. If he were to get, because of injuries and whatnot, if he were to get that start and get a decent amount of the game, I think he could actually ghost fairly well and just get some points and kind of pick him up randomly here and there. He's shown that he has the ability to do that. So if you're kind of hemmed up, you could really do worse than Onyeka against Burnley. Okay, and then as far as my stashes are concerned, Ryan was the one who kind of reminded me, Konate's out there in a lot of leagues. If you look at Liverpool's upcoming fixture list, it is a dream. It's an absolute dream. And I can only assume that Konate will work his way back into that starting 11. At least that's my take on it. And if that's the case, he's free in a lot of leagues right now, because I know that because he's free in a lot of the uber competitive community leagues /IGL. And that being the case, he's probably free in your league. Go ahead and grab him, stash him just in case, because the upcoming fixture list is insane. Same with West Ham defenders. They've been playing fairly well. They've been pretty stout at home, as Sanji mentioned, but also the upcoming fixtures are also a dream. So guys like Aguerd, if he's out there for you, go ahead and grab him. Brighton mids. I know this is a minefield. I know the rotation is a nightmare. But if you can start to stash them, the fixture list gets a lot more friendly for Brighton coming up. And they've seen some shit lately. Like, they've been through it. And so them seeing a nicer kind of run of fixtures, and that after City looks like Fulham, Everton, Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea, Brentford, Burnley. It doesn't get a whole lot better than that. And so if you can start to stash those midfield pieces now, I think that's a pretty solid plan of action, just if you have extra bench spots.
Who would you stash?
I think people are going to get fed up with guys like Ansu Fati playing 45 minutes. I think people might get fed up with guys like Adingra. If he doesn't start against City, I think you're going to see him dropped a lot of places. I think you could trade low for some of the other guys too. So even if they're not waiver wire stashes, you might be able to go in, for, I don't know. I actually haven't spent a ton of time with their numbers recently, but
the only reason I'm asking is because I think this is true for their forwards to some extent.
For sure. Yeah, no. I think it's all attacking assets, yeah.
Yeah, the midfielders, I think you're not getting Mitoma, March, or Gross for cheaper than their draft day value, and all the rest, I doubt they are worth stash.
Pedro?
The midfielders, I mean.
Okay, got it.
The attackers,
got it.
I think JP, Ferguson, all are prime candidates for buy low or stash if you're in a smaller league.
JP, Adingra, people might be dropping at this point. People might be fed up and dropping. I've seen Welbeck's available everywhere, and he's a prime streamer anytime he starts. But yeah, people
even Ferguson,
right? Exactly.
That well.
Yeah. What about guys like Buonanotte? Those types of players, you're just looking at them more as streamers, right? You're not gonna stash them away.
Yeah.
It's funny, when I wrote this, Totti, I forgot how many of these assets are classed as forwards. Yeah. So I think what I really meant was actually the forwards. You're totally right about that, because, damn, I didn't realize how. There's They're all forwards.
Exactly. Only March, Mitoma, and Gross.
Buonanotte.
Yeah.
Yeah, Buonanotte is a midfielder, but I don't think he's worth a stash.
Wow. I'm gonna amend that, even though I can't live, because I can't have access to the slide. But I'm gonna amend that. That's what I meant. That's actually what I meant. Unless maybe like Jacob Motor gets a start or something, or like Alzate.
I like that.
Yeah.
Alzate is also a forward, I think, though.
No way.
I think he is.
No, he's
Yeah,
a mid.
he
He's
is.
a mid. He's a mid.
Is he?
Yeah.
There was a season where he was a forward.
Yeah,
He must have gotten changed. Yeah, he's a mid. Anyway, this is beside the point. Do not stash all these Brighton guys, please don't. Just the ones that matter. Just the ones that matter, please. Okay. Anything else on streamers, guys?
No.
We're good.
No. Are we taking any questions, or that's next stream? I guess.
Let it be next week.
Let it be next week. Yeah, let it be. Yeah, we'll let it be next week. Nice. All right, listeners, you are the best. Viewers, you are even better. Listeners, you should probably join us next week and be a viewer instead, because the chat is really fun. This has been awesome. I just have a great time every single time we jump on and do this. So thank you so much to those who joined us live and contributed in chat. You guys are the absolute best. But listeners, you guys are amazing too. If you made it this far, as always, you're incredible. I was going to say best of luck on this game week. No, relax. Take it easy. Take a breather. Play a fucking video game, or relax. Eat a taquito or something. Just have a nice time. Anyway, yeah. We'll see you in a week's time. And if you have any fantasy questions that are burning up until that point, keep them in the back of your mind. And next week we'll try to hone in on listener questions and see if we can get a bunch of your questions answered, whether they're trade questions or ad drops, things like that. Keep those in the back of your mind and let us know next week, because we'll get at it. All right, everybody, cheers. This has been the KPC. Love y'all. Take care.
Goodbye.